Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Well, it's actually, now it's good afternoon now. All right, welcome, welcome, welcome. It is such a pleasure to see so many faces in here. I've already counted over 60 people. I'm going to have to do another count because more people have come through the door. But it is such a wonderful thing to see so many people coming to support the idea of connecting mainstream education to SAIL training. Now, I'm also very aware that there are people in this room that do this as a living, and so we are very excited to sort of hear some of your feedback as well, and get the whole idea of this is to share knowledge and get feedback from everybody. So I'm very proud. Just as an introduction, my name is Murray Henstock. I am a trustee for SAIL Training International. Connecting education with SAIL training is one of my passions. So I'm very proud to be part of this workshop, and we have 4 amazing speakers to come and speak to you today about their experiences from 4 totally different perspectives on connecting education. So I'm just going to quickly read out their bios so you are aware of who we are, and then we'll get cracking straight into it. So our first off the mark will be Stuart Burney. Stuart's maritime experience includes many years as a volunteer and a professional on vessels such as the Soren Larsen and Spirit of New Zealand, sailing scows, a brigantine, a Polynesian voyaging canoe, and 2 small steamboats. After a time as chairman of the Sail Training Association of New Zealand and sailing manager for the New Zealand Maritime Museum, Stuart became the senior captain and director of marine operations for the Spirit of Bermuda. Following Stuart will be Alastair Carter, who is the development officer for the Ocean Youth Trust Scotland since 2013, having previously been first mate for the organisation. Since he joined his first voyage as a young person 11 years ago, he has been passionate about sail training, and in 2011 completed the UK Sail Training Skippership Programme. Following Alastair will be Dave Pilar, and he's been with the Proctor Academy since 1981, where he teaches wildlife science. Being a science teacher, that's awesome. Fisheries and Forestry. He is the director of the Ocean Classroom at Proctor, a program he founded with Bert Rogers in 1993. I think I saw Bert in here before. Hello. Dave is a licensed wildlife biologist, forester, and mariner. And finishing off, last but certainly not least, is Moran Fengler. Did I get that right? Oh, good. She is a double gold medal figure skater who competed at the highest level of sport and still teaches 3 afternoons a week. But she began as a volunteer of the brigantine Irving and Exie Johnson, and has gone on to work on vessels such as Virginia and Lynx. She has sailed on a total of 14 boats and has been a volunteer, paid deckhand, mate, and currently spends too much time as at a desk as a volunteer coordinator for the Los Angeles Maritime Institute. So I'd like to we'll kick it off straight away. Each speaker will have about 15 minutes. Questions, because there's a lot to go through. If you do have questions, I'm sure the speakers will let you know if it's a good time to ask during their presentation or save it to the end. And what we are going to do at the last 10-15 minutes is actually split the speakers up into 4 corners of the room so that you have a chance, if you want to, go and ask those particular people questions and see the people that you want to see. So see if hopefully that will work out best. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome Stuart.
Thanks, Murray. Welcome, everybody. Can I just find out with a quick show of hands who here is already including mainstream education in some form on their vessels? Okay, so I'm seeing approximately a third. Thank you very, very much. Can I find out if you've been doing that for a period of more than 5 years, please? Same again. Pretty much the same group. Interesting. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Just to give you a little bit of background, Murray's also given you a very nice bio. I just want to say that I don't regard myself as a classical mariner. I'm not the hardcore. I don't know how to do every splice under the sun. My passions are sailing, but I also have a passion for teaching. So I have a certificate in adult teaching. I wanted to provide that background to you. I've spent some considerable time in New Zealand. One of my tasks in New Zealand was setting up and running a program on the Polynesian voyaging canoe you heard about, which was in commercial operation, 80 foot long with 26 people on board. So there's that background, and then in May last year I moved to the Spirit of Bermuda, and with the Bermuda Sloop Foundation. So, moving on. The Bermuda Sloop Foundation provides 5-day, 4-night experiences for 13-year-olds, which is is our core business, during the winter months, accessing almost all the students in that year level in Bermuda. Bermuda only has a population of 70,000. We offer coastal voyages for older youth, and then that extends into overseas voyages primarily to the eastern seaboard of the United States. And we try and encourage people who do that to come and sail with us and become part of our crew, and then often they will go off into maritime careers. So it's a continuing process, and we like to talk about people coming back and doing steps with us rather than just having one experience. Just wanted to give you a little bit of background as to how the sloop operates. This is a picture on board in our accommodation in Galley area. The students here are 13 years old. They've just completed one of our 5-day experiences, and they're viewing on the screen the pictures that were taken during the trip. Now, as you can see, they're pretty happy, and they've had aspects of mainstream education in their program. How do we get there? When I started in May and started with the Bermuda Sloop Foundation, I was new to formal education, as in curriculum sessions being taught on tall ships. And I perceived a number of difficulties, and I discussed them with the education manager, who's a trained teacher in Bermuda. And we agreed that these were concerns that we perhaps needed to look at and address. So just very quickly, that's what we perceive as the differences. Schools teach individuals. Character building emphasizes group work. Now, I realize that character building in schools differ in different countries. This is our experience, so please take from it what you will. Schools aim to increase knowledge and understanding primarily. Character building, to me, is primarily around the application of concepts in real situations, especially regarding communication with others. Schools externally judge. Character building specifies self-judgment. This, to me, says if we're doing a short experience with our 13-year-olds on the Spirit of Bermuda, how do we not dilute the message of character building, which is our primary reason for being there, and include mainstream education? And when I discussed the education manager, she was in agreement. Let's talk this through, how we would do it. And this is how we do it. Program sessions and goals are run and achieved by groups. We offer reflection activities facilitated for individuals. The individuals are encouraged to evaluate their own effectiveness. There's the character building coming in. We do not test at any stage. We run the mainstream courses, but we do not test for them on board. And I realise there are some operators, the Wild Swan, I was talking to some people last night, thank you very much. They explained that they do test on board. The difference, I think, is the amount of time the students spend on board. We only have a very short time to access these 13-year-olds. It might be the only time we see them. So for us, the emphasis on making sure the character building goes ahead. On longer voyages, then there's the opportunity to actually test and include the mainstream education as a separate entity within what you're doing. On Spirit of Bermuda, we try to provide short, sharp theory lessons, no more than 20 minutes long for our 13-year-olds. We found we bore them to death if we sit them down too long. Afterwards, we get them to apply the lessons learned in practical group exercises. So wherever possible, we try to do that immediately. To allow for ongoing learning, we promote the recording of reflection sessions in a voyage journal we currently call a passport at the end of every day. The idea is that they can take that learning and that experience off the vessel. We are investigating providing more integration between school and spirit-based learning through programs. Now here's the key. The schools, if they know what we do on board in terms of our practical sessions, can run introductions. We can do the stuff on board. Then the students can go to school and then they can get tested. So it can be part of the formal curriculum. The schools see the immediate benefit, and we also get funding from the Ministry of Education. Only about that much, and about that much operating budget. We do get some. So we're investigating in that and still working on it. To sum it all up, everything we run on our core business short trips is around designing educational sessions for character development. Everything is character development. Well, we are integrating the sessions as described. And the reason is to maintain dedication to our purpose. We're not weakening that which makes us different from schools. So what I'm going to run through now is a bunch of the different sessions we run on board. I'm not going to spend too long on them. At this stage, I'd just like to say there are a number of people here who have different experiences. If you would like to clarify anything that I'm talking about, please ask the question straight away. Okay, so what subjects are we addressing? Now, I must let you know that the Bermuda education system primarily runs the Cambridge curriculum of the UK, so it's linked into that. You'll see the direct references shortly. First one is science. We have a session running tinfoil boats. The students have to design, build, test against a preposition. So they're getting experience with scientific investigation, and this goes into in scientific investigation, a different form of it is fish recognition and characterization associated with a snorkeling experience. And again, they record the involves. For anybody interested, there are the references. As I understand it, the presentations are going up on the STI website later. So the references are there. Moving on. Science again, materials and their properties, Bermudian cedar as boat building timber, and for polishing brass. Polishing brass, how does that work? Well, we can relate it to rust and the fact that it's not useful and it gets in the way and we have to do something about it. We have to maintain. Again, science, sail theory and practice, they're those Cambridge refs. Now, I'm aware that on Spirit of Bermuda, operating with 13-year-olds for our core business, we're quite a bit different from older students. So we have to be quite directed in the way we teach. And I want to talk more about how we can devolve that later on to increase that difference between us and schools. What subjects are we addressing? The technology, engineering, science. We use an iPad with an appropriate star identifier up against the sky. We find that's the easiest way of getting the students to identify the stars and what they all mean. Art. The passports the students have guided activities in them in some cases, and in some cases we ask for free expression. They do have sessions and they do have to provide some input into those passports. So we don't allow laziness, but we do allow them the maximum freedom to express themselves where possible. Bermudian students culturally are not performers. It may be more appropriate to run a skit night, which is what the Polynesians used to do. They wouldn't do anything written. At home, they'd perform, and boy would they perform. The important thing is the A in STEAM. I think in the programs it said STEM education. Science, technology, engineering and maths. Well, A has been added to it lately and it's for art. And that's for that freedom of expression, which I totally believe in. It's interesting that Bermuda is a lot more conservative than New Zealand in this particular area. I'm aware that the United States has a far greater performing arts component than we do. I just want to signal at this point that I presented at the last year's conference on Maori culture and sail training in New Zealand. And what I learned there was the more that you can adapt the art, the performing arts, all that kind of thing to the culture, the far more value you got out of the students for just about everything else. It's a feeder, and I can't stress it enough. So I know we're looking at art, the English now. I'll just try and go back a bit. I want to specify right here that without arts, all the others start to fade. So, moving on. English, communication in many forms, logbooks, guided activities and the passports. Maths, collection of data, interpretation and application, especially on night watch, that's a night watch log. Navigation, obviously. Now, for older students, on the longer voyages, we go into far greater depth. And the idea is that for the older voyages, hopefully we can hand over the ship at some stage towards the end. I know a lot of programs do this. The relationship of time to distance, use of a chronometer. Now when we get into non-STEM subjects, just to illustrate, this is still part of the curriculum in Bermuda, we're looking at these things. That's actually the painting that was used to design Spirit of Bermuda from. Hangs in the Government House in Bermuda. So they're seeing direct history links through what we do. Use of language and self-development. This is where I want to specify that I see teaching mainstream activities on board as being quite stressful. And that is because when you've got a group of students turning up on your vessel and they've never been away from home at all, suddenly we have a new environment, a whole different set of rules, so much learning to be done. Oh, wait a minute, you've got to learn all this mainstream education stuff as well. There are some tools that can help us do all that, and one of these tools is making the vessel safe for people to learn on board with. And this is where some of these things we use to try and make the vessel safe on board for them to learn. We try and introduce the principle that it's a privilege to learn from somebody else's mistakes. We say, don't use the word you at the beginning of a sentence. Try and think about other ways of saying things. Constructive criticism, demonstrating it. Address issues, not people. For older groups, some cultures don't have the word sorry in them. We make the students not say sorry for a while. Suddenly they don't want to embarrass themselves. They're putting more effort into making sure they get things right first time, just by eliminating that word. So the point I want to make here is, unlike English in schools, we can actually get them to change minor items of their language and see and experience the effects because we're enforcing it all the time. Students review the effects at the end of the trip. How did it go? How did you find this worked? Obviously, we're providing a low sugar diet and a healthy lifestyle. The actual links, the whole list of them, I can provide them should you need them. My email is up there, and of course it'll be on the presentation on the website. These tools that I was talking about in making sure that students are able to learn with all of that learning load that they are that is imposed on them at the beginning of a trip. I just want to highlight there's some things about what we do that inhibit learning. People cannot learn effectively. They're insecure, sick, hot, cold, hungry, or unaccepted. Unaccepted is the cultural element. If you can provide that cultural acceptance, they'll start to thrive. And it applies to everybody, but the younger the person, the more it applies. Students act out when they're unable to deal with or express an issue. How often have you seen people punishing a student for the way they act, rather than sitting down with them and sorting out what the issue is? If you sort out the issue, they can get back to learning. If you're punishing them for their behaviour, they're thinking about that and they're unable to learn for some time afterwards. I can't stress how that, which is fairly new to me, has changed about the way we do things on board. We are enabling learning by actively helping them sort out their own issues. We make sure our watch leaders know about the learning cycle, and they're absolutely trying to use it all the time with each of the activities they run. The one that's constantly missed, and most of us do, is the reflection. Most of us do the three. The what do we want to do? We plan it, we do it, but we miss the reflection. If you miss the reflection, you miss the chance to teach them. They won't learn from it as effectively. Learning styles, we are trying to adapt all our resources to make sure that those who are stronger in auditory, visual, or doing they are catered for. We're trying to make sure that there are a number of instructions and way of accessing them. And there's just a quote. With older students, we challenge them. Right, you're really good at this. In 5 minutes, you're going to teach the rest. Suddenly, they're retaining 95% and they can flourish as a leader. This is a tool we use. If you want to access it, we've found it very powerful. And this is how we're addressing the subjects that I've previously brought up. For those of you who are interested in seeing how we work to develop the curriculum links and work them all out, it's up there. I'm short of time, so I won't go through them now. I want to summarise by saying we won't get offshore and we won't work with our students effectively unless, if we're looking at mainstream education, we're empowering them to learn, making our vessels safe to do so. So my presentation to sum up is, yeah, mainstream education is an incredible opportunity. In order to access and make the most of it, we need to have the tools. So this is what the Bermuda Sloop Foundation is all about. This is just the summary. So if you want to find out what we're at in a nutshell, that's it. And this is where we hope our students will end up, taking part in the America's Cup with us in 2017, and I hope that many of you will visit us there. Thank you very much for your time.
Great. Afternoon, everybody. As a sail trainer, I've seen firsthand the value and impact an offshore experience, like the ones we offer, and many of you do, I'm sure, have on a young person's development and education. The challenge, attitude, outlook, confidence, and the realization that this doesn't stop once they leave the vessel and head home. However, the challenge we as an organisation face, and I'm sure many of you at times are in a similar one, is explaining and showing this to those who have not yet been on board and experienced it for themselves. Murray's already done my bio, so the next part of my presentation was just to read that out again so I can skip through that. Personally, I feel I've gained some fantastic experiences, and I'm truly passionate about what we do. However, I would like to state at this point that I don't have any formal teaching qualifications. My wife and my mother are both teachers, so I would certainly say I've probably gained a lot of the backroom experience of teaching, and that's probably had more of a negative effect than a positive one at times. But I'm an educator and an outdoor practitioner, and so one of the things with this project was getting actual teachers involved, and that was vital for us. Explaining the true extent of what we do has always been a challenge. However, advances in the opportunity to film on board our boats has made a huge impact on that. They say a picture says 1,000 words. I'd just like to show you one of the quick videos, because hopefully this says 1,000 more.
Imagine a vessel. One that enables a passage of self-discovery. Built from steel and canvas, it's driven by the unpredictable elements. But what are you built from? What is the force that drives you forward? You can't predict a voyage. The complexity of nature just won't allow it. You can try to prepare for adventure by bringing an open mind. Traversing from challenge to opportunity, an unforgettable experience awaits. Sailing is a contest for learning what can and cannot be controlled. At sea, there is peace and tranquility. And then, there is the opposite. It's down to mastering the power of the wind to drive you forward, getting the balance right between the wind and the waves. The ropes and canvas tell you how the boat is feeling. It will guide you to act as a team. Pointing the vessel at the ever-escaping horizon. On a sensory journey that inspires a lifetime of involvement with outdoors. Ocean Youth Trust Scotland is taking learning out of the classroom, not confined by land. Full support and respect is given around the clock. Are you ready for adventure under sail?
That video is online, so if you would like to see it in full, please do head to our website for that one. As an organisation, we've always tried to ensure we have a very diverse set of clients, both empowering our volunteers and our funders and giving them a range of opportunities and people to support. No presentation would be complete without some pie charts, so I'll quickly rush through these two. But as you can see there, half of our client group is made up of what we call youth work programs. Most of these are outside of mainstream education, council-led, or privately funded projects. You see that 22% come from state school and mainstream education, 7% from private schools. We have some individuals that come on board with us. Most of ours is group-based, the work that we do at Ocean Youth Trust Scotland, where clients are booking a full voyage together rather than taking individual students on at a time. As you see, a slight shift in that looking ahead to this coming year, and that is mainly due to the project that I'm talking about now. So the Curriculum for Excellence is the Scottish Government's new initiative that will see young people from 3 years of age to 18 years of age completing one syllabus. The big thing in the UK has always been that it's been split up into nursery, primary, secondary and further education. Scotland wants to draw that all together. Through all these stages of education, there's a real emphasis on flexibility and enriching methods for teaching. The main focus of the Curriculum for Excellence is that schools and councils share the responsibility for developing a varied and challenging curriculum for students. There's no formally prescribed curriculum from the government, and this gives teachers far more flexibility in how they actually teach, something that I'm sure many teachers will be thrilled to hear. The 4 key purposes of education, according to Curriculum for Excellence for students, however, will be that they'll be successful learners by the time they leave mainstream education. They'll be confident individuals. They'll be responsible citizens. And they'll be effective contributors. In order to achieve these capacities, the Curriculum for Excellence and the Scottish Government has a number of outcomes that should be met by the education curriculum young people receive. The quite unique part of this initiative is that teachers have almost complete control over how they actually achieve these outcomes and the experiences that they use to do it. As you can imagine, this presents a fantastic opportunity for outdoor education, and I think particularly sail training, to help teachers achieve these outcomes in new and exciting ways. This new way of looking at formal education in Scotland suits us and sail training as a whole, as it looks at the whole person. The importance for young people's experiencing and practicing the academic theories they're learning in the classroom. This attitude is very similar, as we'll all be aware, to that of Kurt Hand, true pioneer in modern outdoor education. Academically justifying and rating what we do through Adventure Under Sail has always been challenging, and I'm sure at times slightly contentious. The Curriculum for Excellence and its design is a huge step forward for allowing us to attach academic value without having to actually change what we do as sail trainers. And that's always been the challenge. The schools and governments have quite often wanted us to change what we do and how we do it to meet the statistics that they need to get at the end of the year. The potentials with funding sources are significant because this really highlights partnership work. And particularly in the UK charity sector, it's very important at the moment that for funders we can show that we're working in partnership with organisations, with other people. It also allows schools to access alternative methods of funding these programmes. We're all aware that what we do at times is very expensive, and the value of that cost is often difficult to pass on and explain to those that ultimately have to foot the bill. With the Scottish curriculum, it actually allows schools, if they want to fully embed it in the curriculum and therefore use funding that they're given by the state towards their education. So how did we approach this challenge of connecting sail training? It was critical that we understood, whilst the new style of curriculum had helped us bridge the gap, there was still going to be barriers for teachers, councils and students to actually adopting this. And we very quickly identified that the best way to do this was actually to get teachers to do it for us. Through funding awarded by YouthLink Scotland, we appointed a practicing teacher for 3 months with the Trust. And as you can see from the slide, the outcomes were very clear that we wanted to achieve by the end of the project. We believe that for projects like this to work, teachers projects like this, to truly succeed, we need to not only listen to what teachers have said in the past and what we've understood from those comments, but actually get them actively involved in first the creation, the development, and the delivery process. I strongly believe that teachers developing resources for teachers works 10 times better than sale trainers listening and creating what they think teachers need. Hopefully technology will work this time. This video is the first of a suite of videos that we produced for this project, which I'll show. Rather embarrassingly, I'm going to stop talking and allow me on screen to talk to you further.
OIT Scotland's SAIL training programme is a perfect match for the Curriculum for Excellence because, to be honest, it is the Curriculum for Excellence. Everything that the 4 Capacities tries to create in an individual is what SAIL training does on a practical point. So everything that the teachers are explaining and trying to instill in their students, they get to put into practice when they come on board the boat. So we felt that for our voyages to really embed into the Curriculum for Excellence, we needed knowledge and experience for all the subject areas. So the best way to do that was to get a team of 10 teachers from around Scotland, put them on board a boat for a weekend, get them to experience what SAIL training really was, to see firsthand how it fitted into their curriculum, but also give them a chance to create and develop some resources that they and their colleagues could use.
For another teacher coming on board, just seeing what the experience is like. It's hard work, but it's so worthwhile, it's so valuable. I've had a massive confidence boost in myself, and I can see how the kids would definitely experience that as well. So I would highly recommend it to anyone who's interested in that. And even then, if they're doubting it, try it and see.
To the young people, it's not only another way of learning in the classroom, but it's also a way of actually practicing the stuff that they've theoretically learned in a classroom, maybe understood it to a degree, but now they've actually had a chance to properly practice it and put it into action. The Curriculum for Excellence programme with OIT Scotland is very much something we want teachers, local authorities to be very much involved in and developing with us. It's not something that is set in stone, it's something that we want to use their expertise, their knowledge to improve and create. So if anybody wants to be more involved, if anybody wants to try a weekend and see how it really could work with their programme, then definitely get in touch with us and have a look at our website.
So as the video explained, we put teachers on board for a weekend, got them to really experience it and very much use it to feed back to us what they were doing. The really important thing that that video doesn't show that we found was that getting this weekend accredited for continued professional development for teachers was vital. Getting a weekend when teachers can come away, when schools aren't having to pay them, teachers aren't having to take it out of their very limited personal time in their profession, means that schools were able to really endorse it and really push it. And that was vital because in the end, as we all know, it's head teachers that are ultimately going to allow these things to happen. You can have the most passionate teacher in the world, but if the person signing their paycheck isn't behind it, there's not very much they can do. One of the big things for the training was the online module, and I'm aware I'm short on time, so I'm just going to whiz through a couple of bits here, Murray. So we created an online module for teachers. This is very much a preparation tool. So maybe once they've signed up for the voyage, they're looking to develop their understanding of what they're going to do and also how it's going to work with their curriculum. But it's also very much a sales tool. As I just said, getting head teachers, getting students to buy into this is vital as well. And so they're able to use this and say, look, to their head teacher, you've not got time to get on board a boat for a weekend like I did. Run through this for 30 minutes and see the value of it. We don't charge for this module, and I'd be more than happy to send you guys login details for it. My email address is on the screen there. The only request I do have is if you do run through the module, please do let me know what you think of it. We tried to make sure that this is fun. We've all done those online modules that make us feel like we've aged several years in 30 minutes. And that we're not quite sure why it was that we had to do it. So we've tried to make sure that that wasn't the case with this. And the aim of it was that we wanted teachers to not just walk away from this module feeling informed, but actually feel excited about what they were going to do. as you've seen there, some of the videos, we produced a set of 6 videos. There's the overview video, and then there's also some that break down into the more specific subjects. So looking at how different subjects, and maybe particularly those ones that you wouldn't expect on a boat. Science, technology, maths, those we can relatively straightforward see how they tie in. English, language subjects, history, maybe you've got to be slightly more creative with it, the arts. And so it's trying to show teachers how they can get those joined in. The other thing that was quite important was it was not only getting teachers on board the boat, and from my point, ultimately getting that sail that keeps the boss happy, but it was actually making sure that teachers felt they could use this after the voyage. Embedding it into the curriculum meant they had to be able to take it home. We have 5-7 days with these young people and these teachers. Teachers have the rest of the year to make sure that what they've done has stayed with them. So we created a number of resources. We've got these guides which support the online module. And then we've also got these record books. Now these can be used by the teachers, but they can also be used by the students to record what they've done. Very much matching these experiences and outcomes together for the end of the year. The other important thing was training. I've got a motley crew of sea staff there for you to see, including my boss, so he was delighted at that photo. He's the one pulling the face at the back. Training our sea staff was vital for this project. As much as sail training for many teachers is a very alien environment, the Curriculum for Excellence is a very alien environment for sail trainers in Scotland. And so getting them confident with it, getting them comfortable with this program that they're going to deliver on board the boat, and particularly how they do it on board and how they'll make sure they achieve these outcomes for the young people was vital. So just quickly to summarise, firstly we'd learned just how well it fitted with the curriculum. We've noticed an increase in sales, which ultimately is a good thing, as we all do need money to run these boats and voyages. We've also noticed a lot of schools are now allowing students during term time to come on these voyages, which was something we really struggled with in the past. And that is really because they do see the value. It's not a week out of school away from education. It's just an alternative way of learning. We found that pupils have engaged for longer with us, as it's part of their curriculum. We've also found that parents are supporting more and donating more because they've seen the value and they can understand it. But we're always keen to push it further. Job's never finished. So we will be looking to develop resources for the English curriculum. As many of you will know, the UK, although we are still one nation, as of last November, we do have many separated. That's my contentious bit there. We do have many. Our education system is completely broken up into 4 very distinctive education styles. So that does cause some interesting hurdles for sail trainers trying to bridge the gap. We can develop more online resources, but at the same time, there's nothing better than actually getting on board a boat for a weekend. And then we're also looking to create these logbooks, a lot like Stuart and the guys have already done, to actually develop that. So finally, all I'd like to say is that through this whole program, it's been clear that the best way to develop and implement a project like this is to openly and honestly engage with the client, in this case teachers. Yes, we're ultimately trying to create a way of selling our voyage program to them, but they know this, so there's no point hiding it. As a result, by openly engaging with them, we're able to actually get them to create a resource they can actually want, and more importantly, can actually use in the classroom and afloat. Thank you. Apologies for running over.
Bonjour. I'm somewhat daunted by being in this room right now because there are a number of incredibly gifted teachers out here. There are some incredibly gifted mariners in this room. They're people that I hold in the highest regard. I'm also incredibly daunted because I have no pie charts. And so I'm a little bit concerned right now. Alistair, thanks so much for setting the bar that high. It kind of messes me up, but it's okay. I'm also a little bit concerned because I feel like I'm speaking to the choir. As I look out in this room, I'm willing to bet that probably all of us believe very, very strongly in the power of the sea and using the ocean as our ultimate teacher. That's probably why we're here. And so with that said, I'll try to do my best to give you a little bit of a rundown of a program, a little tiny program that we've developed at Proctor Academy down in New Hampshire. I don't know if there are any New England. There are some New Englanders. I see Rick Miller out there, so I know Rick is a New Englander. There was a time when the Boston Celtics were actually a good team. And this is actually related. Way back when, 24 years ago, something like that. I'm getting a little bit older. A dear friend of mine said, "You got to come down to the Boston Garden." Does anybody know what the Boston Garden is? Give me a little bit of something. Excellent. So this friend of mine, George Dow, invited me down to Boston. I said, "You got to meet this guy. A guy named Bert Rogers." And so George took us down to the Boston Garden, and we met each other. It had nothing to do with basketball. It had everything to do with this passion of putting together some kind of a program that would allow kids to go to sea. And so I must say that in the scope of this this meeting between Bert and me and George Dow, crazy things got hatched. And long story short, if I can work this technology, we started this thing called Ocean Classroom in 1993. And again, I will always be indebted to my friend Bert Rogers for this. So in 1994, we had our first voyage on the Harvey Gamage. And many people in this room know Gamage, and I love Gamage. It's a ship I spent a lot of time on in the early 80s, and it's a beautiful, beautiful ship, and thank God she's sailing again. The voyage itself that we sort of envisioned and is reality since 1994 is a passage from New England waters down to the Caribbean, about 65 or so days at sea. Along the way, we stop at various ports that have value. And those values may be anything from educational values. Of course, we're going to go to Mystic, and we're going to go into New York, etc., the Chesapeake, Cumberland Island. Eventually, we're going to push off into the Caribbean and make landfall in any number of places that have important value for us as part of our voyage. We have 21 students on board, and I have to be quite honest here, I live a blessed, charmed life relative to sea education. The place I work is called Proctor Academy. It's this little tiny school of about 360 some odd kids in central New Hampshire, an hour and 15 minutes from the coast. And I have to live with that. It's an hour and 15 minutes from the coast. But with that said, we have this incredibly long history of running experiential programs. Beginning in the early 70s, we ran programs in France and in Spain, in Costa Rica. We have a program called Mountain Classroom, which is very similar in some respects to Ocean Classroom, in that we immerse kids in an environment, typically out in the desert Southwest, and spend a full trimester there. So the reason why I say I live in this sort of charmed la-la land to a point is because this school believes very, very strongly in the idea of experiential education, immersing kids in experiences. And so when a void was created, where we needed to develop another program that could fill our fall term, the board of directors had no problem saying, "Dave, go ahead. Work with Bert, develop this program of Ocean Classroom." And I say that, and I have to say that now really honestly, because one of the challenges that we need to face collectively is how to get as many kids to sea as possible. And the devil will always be in the details. I don't need to tell you folks. You folks know. The idea of having a student go on a ship, whether that ship is a high-performance yacht, or whether that ship is a Class A, tall ship, whatever it is, the idea of getting a kid on a ship is one of the most important things that we can possibly do. But to get from there, to actually get them involved, involves all of that other stuff that we need to deal with as directors on a day-to-day basis. So I'm incredibly lucky to be at Proctor. So in addition, just what I want to say before we get going too far, we teach 4 classes on board. We teach classes in marine science, maritime literature, maritime history, and applied mathematics, which is a navigation course. And we have the benefit of time. So if we talk about like Stuart, we have time. So we have a 65-day voyage. And so we run these as full accredited courses that are offered on board. A little bit more history. We have always existed as a partnership. Proctor Academy has no interest in owning a ship. And so part of my job has always been to make sure we have good partners. And for many years, that partnership was with an organization that Bert was directly involved with, other folks were directly involved with, which we then called the Ocean Classroom Foundation. And for reasons that some people know about, some people don't know about, that organization folded a couple of years ago. And then it was my job at that point to make sure that this entity, this Ocean Classroom program that we've been building for more than 20 years, survived. So with the help of many people in this room, Bert, others, we canvassed the whole eastern seaboard and found another partner. And that partner now is the World Ocean School that owns Roseway. We just completed our second voyage with Roseway. And I have to say that we've been very, very happy with this relationship. It's building, it's growing. We've come a long ways in 2 years in this relationship. But the key thing I want folks to understand is that Proctor Academy does not own the ship, that we need to build partnerships. Some other things that I view as key points of discussion. There are financial realities and challenges that we face with Ocean Classroom at Proctor. I guess I've been around the barn a few times, and so I'm trying to figure out what the future holds, right? The classic crystal ball, and if anybody can figure it out, please let me know. What are going to be these challenges that we face? Financial, otherwise. This is a social media world now. I have a 15-year-old son, and if I have a problem with technology, I know right where I'm going, to him. That 15-year-old, I probably could go to an 8-year-old and have the same answers. It's so remarkable. So the challenge that we're facing at Proctor is to make sure that students continue to want to immerse themselves in this experience that is incomparable. I almost hate to use the words experiential education because everything's an experience. Sitting in a classroom's an experience. So I'd rather use other kinds of words like, again, maybe it's a little bit highfalutin, but something like authentic education. Can you put somebody in an experience where, much like other folks have talked about, and other folks will talk about, I know Maren will talk about this, you take an idea, a plan, and then you somehow have that plan happen by doing things with your hands, and then from that be able to reflect. So we want to be able to get kids to do that, to follow that sort of educational pattern, but what else is new? There's nothing new under the sun. We wanted to have that happen forever. And so I look to the future, and what are the challenges? Proctor's a little tiny private school. People are paying good money to go to Proctor Academy. I'm a public school kid. I want to have these same opportunities available for public school kids. And in the States, that's not that easy. We have schools contacting me all the time. How can we get our kids on Roseway? How can we get our kids to be part of Ocean Classroom? Could our school set up an Ocean Classroom program? And I say, absolutely you could. And I'm happy to share whatever I've stolen from other people in the past to get this program going. Absolutely. But then when the schools see all the different hoops they have to jump through to make this happen, it's not easy. It works at Proctor because we've been in the game for a long time. We have off-sequence courses that are offered. So for instance, using an example, if a kid is going to do Ocean Classroom in the fall, and their transcript says they must do chemistry before they leave high school, we have a first term of chemistry that's offered the winter term when they come back. And by the way, Proctor's in a trimester sort of system. So we have sort of in-house systems that allow us to run these kinds of programs. Doesn't mean that it's foolproof. Doesn't mean that it's easy. Some of our kids have to take summer courses to get ready to do their fall voyage, etc., etc. The money end of things. We're in partnership with Roseway. It costs us about $200,000 a year to charter Roseway. But there's a partnership happening there. So we vet all the crew together, both the folks with Roseway, the World Ocean School, and myself. So we're vetting everybody that's in the program. But that's a lot of money. So how do we make that work at Proctor? We pretend like we're an airline. What in the world do I mean by that? We over-enroll the school. So in other words, we actually over-enroll Proctor with boarding students. And so what we can then do is pay the charter agreement with that over-enrollment. And then from that, I don't want to say we hope students leave after the fall term, but we're not crushed when 1 or 2 kids choose to leave the school, because then we can backfill those kids when they come back after their fall program on Ocean Classroom. So it's a game probably not too different from what some of the airlines do when they overbook flights and things of that nature. So these are kind of all of these devilish details. But why do we do it? Why do we do it? We do all of this stuff. We deal with all of this baloney because it's so important. We lost a crew member once. I didn't think I wanted to say this, but I'm going to say it. Bert knows. A young deckhand wanted to work on his free diving. And so we were anchored off of Eleuthera. And this young man, good friend, young kid, was diving on the anchor. And he had shallow water blackout and he died in the middle of one of our ocean classroom voyages. You want to talk about an educational opportunity to make it ridiculous in terms of even using those terms? But every one of those kids on that ship learned what it was to be a shipmate. And, excuse me. Why do we do it? We do it for all sorts of reasons. That's one of the reasons. So the kids walk away from an experience with something that can't be found anyplace else. It's Herbert. So with the help from technology, let's see if we play just a little snippet of one of our ocean classroom voyages.
It's hard to explain how something so rigorous and so hard is awesome and wonderful. It makes you just feel full of life and joy.
Since I've been back from ocean, I just want to talk about ocean all the time.
There were a lot of fun times. Even looking back on it, the stressful times were almost fun.
It is like the hardest work I've ever done, and to throw 4 classes on top of that, it's a little insane. But I think I had more fun in 2 months than I have in my entire life.
The hard work was definitely all worth it because at the end of the day, you know, you're keeping a ship afloat and you're keeping 33 people on the ship alive and well and safe, and it's a rewarding feeling.
But definitely the best thing was getting off the boat and learning about where you were in the environment that those people or the history of that place or island was.
What we were learning in class was actually important to what we were doing. Like if we didn't learn it, we wouldn't know how to navigate, and we wouldn't know like what type of boat was coming at us if all we saw were the lights on top at night. It was all really important stuff that we wouldn't have survived without.
My favorite subject was definitely science. We were literally studying whatever we were sailing in. When we were in the Caribbean, a science class was going snorkeling. Science class was like hiking around the island for the day with your snorkel gear on your back and taking notes afterward. It was great.
And just having a purpose, as in, I need to work on the boat so we can get to the next harbor, so we can refill on food. I need to help out my shipmates because they helped me when I was doing my homework, so I need to help them.
You know, you're sleep deprived, you're hungry, you're sunburnt, you're like, all you want to do is crawl in your bed. Like, I remember there were so many times when I wanted to leave, but in the end I would go back and I would do it a bazillion times over because I got so much out of it, and it was just the most incredible experience in my life because I was able to push myself in a way that I've never been able to push myself. Like, there was not one way that I was not challenged.
It was a struggle every day. Every day was different. You know, you always knew someone had your back and you had their back. And, you know, if you fail, it's okay because you have, 21 other students to help you out.
Because that's really what you do every day on ocean. You're trusting your shipmates to keep you strong and able to do things. And without them, really, ocean can't exist if you don't have trust in each other.
But like every second of the day is like important and exciting, and there's always something to do. And now being here, I just realize like how much I can take advantage of my day.
I guess it's made me appreciate simple life.
Yeah, I'm just a lot more confident as a person and a lot more outgoing, and I see myself as a leader now.
You know, I brought back a sense of time, a sense of duty, and it really helped me in both my schoolwork and my home life to sort of be able to roll with the punches and learn to respect others and trust others. But I think really the most important thing that you bring back from ocean, and this sounds really corny, was the people.
I wish I could be back on Roseway every single day. I'd give anything to go back. It was just the most amazing time of my life, and I want to go back so badly.
It's hard to explain how amazing it is and how life-changing and how defining Ocean Classroom is as a program.
Ready up anchor! Ready up anchor! Thank you. I'm willing to bet that probably half, 2/3, 3/4, 9/10, 100% of you all in this room could put together the exact same type of video. So it's not about the video. In fact, there's a little bit of a part of my weird body that is really happy when technology doesn't work, because it reminds us of why we go to sea. We go to sea to leave a lot of that stuff behind, and the education of the life happens. That's enough for me. Thanks so much.
I can talk. Oh, there we go. Hi. Good afternoon. Let's see if this works. You good? It's that technology thing again. Hey, look at that. There we go. So I'm Marianne. I'm from Los Angeles Maritime Institute. There we go. Okay. So for those of you who don't know who we are in the Port of Los Angeles in San Pedro. We were founded by the gentleman in the white hat there about 23 years ago, and we have taken about 60,000 kids to sea. Had a small topsail schooner called Swift of Ipswich, and along the way graduated to these two really fun brigantines, Irving Johnson and Exie Johnson. I think most of you know who they were. It's nice to be in a room where I don't have to explain that. And the Port of Los Angeles, we have, I'll connect it later on, but we have the opportunity to have about 40% of the United States goods going past our docks all the time, and millions of containers sitting there for the kids to look at when they come aboard. So before I get into this, how about everybody stand up for a minute? Stretch a little bit. We've been sitting for a while. Yeah, there you go. Okay, who can tell me what STEM is and what it stands for? Anybody? Come on, y'all know now. Right back here, go. Okay, and we had another one that Stuart brought up earlier, which was STEAM. You add the A. What is that? Art. Very good. I got another one for you. NGSS. Does anyone know what that one is? Oh, for the win. Nicely done. Next Generation Science Standards. All right, you can all sit down if you like. New state standards. Common Core gets thrown out in there a lot. It's all kind of controversial stuff. We're not going to get into that today. Just know that it's out there. So why did I have you guys all get up, besides the fact that we've been sitting too long? And why did I start asking you questions? That's part of what all this stuff is trying to do right now, is at least in the state of California, they tell me that the last 14 years or so of what they've been doing in the classroom is not working. And it's basically that they have been standing in front of kids and lecturing them instead of getting them involved. So I made you be my guinea pigs and involved you a little bit. But what they're also saying is that it's kind of a transitional phase right now, and there are lots of people involved in figuring this stuff out. Curriculums are changing constantly, standards are changing constantly, and nobody knows what's going on, which is good news for us, because what they're coming back to is, as we've all said, experiential education, which is what everybody in this room knows works. And so the framework is good. All this stuff benefits the kids, because getting them more involved, getting them challenged in different ways, obviously makes them start learning better. And it's good news for us, because there's a lot of money out there to be had if you're doing this kind of stuff. So this is what we've been doing. In order to do it is creating partnerships, which I will get into a lot in here. 3D teaching is one of the terms that they are using to make experiential education sound a little more formal. I've linked it in there. I'm not going to get into all this stuff that's in there, but you can take a look at that when you look at this program on presentation online. It is state by state implemented. What I'm talking about today is very very specific to California, and we're crazy. So y'all have to look at what you have going on in your country or state and figure it out from there. I want to point out really quick the little bit of the chart there. In terms of thinking about what you're doing online, this is just a little bit. That is the course that we took with a group of students one day. The captain got that shot, and that was what we posted on our Facebook page to kind of show everybody, hey, look what this school did today. So that's just a little side bit to think about. This has been the key for us, is creating partnerships and showing them how you are integrating NGSS and STEM and all that into your program and what value you can give to them by having them come to you. So this is the key that we found, is you don't really need to restructure your program. You just need to learn how to speak about it differently to start approaching these people. And tap their knowledge. That's a big one. It's going to come up in another slide later, but that's been a huge thing for us, is not learning how not to redo what we do, but to talk about it and structure it in a way that teachers and educators and everybody else can use. So what I'm really going to get into here is how we've done it with several programs and what it's brought to us. So the first is, this is huge for us. Los Angeles Unified District, that is the major one. It's hundreds and hundreds of schools, thousands of educators. They have a huge central office in downtown LA that they call the Death Star. So we started working with their Office of Outdoor and Environmental Education in about 2013. They have an after-school program called Beyond the Bell, and that's a pretty cool program too. They've got 2 facilities. They have one in the Angeles National Forest and one right near us in Point Fermin, which is kind of out on the cliffs in San Pedro. And they bring kids out for the weekends. They'll bring them down on a Friday night. They spend the night, and then they come out sailing with us on Saturday, and they go back. It's a pretty cool facility. They've got a dorm, a big cafeteria, all this stuff. So we started talking to them in about 2013, and there were meetings. There were lots and lots of meetings, probably once every other week for about 3 months, where we kind of got to know each other and figured out what we could provide that would match what they needed, and developed the curriculum, which we could not have done on our own without hiring some sort of consultant. And that curriculum ended up down the road netting us a $25,000 grant to be able to take Wilmington Middle School sailing, and that is a very, very poor area down in the harbor. So that came directly out of, because we were able to go to Wilmington with the curriculum that had developed out of this. And it's basically science at sea. The kids will come down. They started out, and they would come down with these PVC pipe UROVs that never worked. But that was part of the process. They were doing the whole test the theory in real life thing, go back and make adjustments and make it work. As the program has grown, now they've got these really sweet ones with remote controls that we tested off our dock and checked our zincs to make sure they were okay. But they come out, and you can see some of the experiments. They do water. Well, it evolved. It started out, we kind of didn't know what each other wanted. We did all the conversations, and then we had a day where we brought their educators and our volunteers together and trained them on the vessels how to deliver the program, which has since changed, but it's an evolving thing, so you've got to keep on top of that. So they will come out. Right now, what they're kind of doing is the 2 boats, Exie and Irving. One will go to one location, another will go to another location, and it's the same one. They do it every time they come out, and they take water samples, and they're kind of creating a database from that, and so it's teaching the kids how to do that. And we did one, this is mostly middle schools. We did one with a group of high school kids that was really fun. We did a nautical scavenger hunt with them because we knew these experiments were too easy for the kids that we were bringing on board. And we basically set up kind of a course through the harbor and had them look at the Angels Gate Lighthouse and find certain buoys and go around a cargo ship, and they had to get, you know, all this information off it, like how many lifeboats it had, was it anchored, was there an anchor ball up, did they, you know, the port of registry. So basically, they came out with 3 different groups of kids: the navigators, the deckhands, and I think they call them the film crew. they had these really beefy iPads, and they were walking around writing things down and taking pictures to prove they'd been there. And we knew that if both groups checked off everything on the list, they would tie. We were trying to make it a contest. So the deciding factor came down to who put the fewest hours on the engine that day. And that was really fun. So anyway, that's one of the programs. Another one we've been doing, and this connects back to the port and all of that, Port of Los Angeles is trying to get more young people involved in maritime jobs. So we have been working with Port of Los Angeles High School for the last couple of years and having them come out once a month or so. This year it got formalized into an actual program, and they come out, I think they're out once a week now, and we have restructured our logbook, and I'll show you a picture of that in a minute, we didn't dumb it down, but we basically took some of the content that's a higher level out of it, and it's now split into what can be basically 2 semester sections, and they're coming out and doing about a 2-hour sail once a week or so, and that's going to culminate in a voyage. And if they've all done their homework and we've done our training right, we'll basically sit in the back of the boat and let them do everything. They're going to plan the voyage, where they're going, the food, who's doing the watches, who's going to be sort of a student captain and a student mate. They're going to do all of it. We recently, literally I think 3 weeks ago, started an onshore boat building component. That's still, we're working the nuts and bolts out of that one, but it's going to expand that program even more. Along the same lines, we're also working with Banning High School, which is over in Wilmington, and these are kids that are behind razor wire when they're going to school because it's that rough of a neighborhood. Similar to Pola, not quite the same. They're not out every week. I think they had 2 classroom sessions where one of our saltier captains kind of went in there and got gruff and taught them one class that was boat anatomy and sail theory and that kind of thing. And then they came out on the vessel, and they'll have about 4-day sails, and then they also will have a culminating voyage. These are some shots of the logbook. It's got anatomy they can refer to, whole list of checkoffs, and then they get a lovely embossment on their endorsement page. We had to name this program because I think we all know grants and their language can get interesting. So Youth Crew Adventure Learning Program. And again, this is something that's going to build on itself. This is a really fun one. Port of Los Angeles has started Altasea, which is a giant collaboration way out at the end where kind of nothing is going on. They are building a huge research facility out there that's going to bring vessels in. What is it, 12, yeah, $500 million, 12 universities, USC, UCLA, that sort of thing. They're all involved in it. So of course we had to get involved. And you can see some of those things, but the coolest thing about this was they've actually helped us fundraise already. We're starting our little program with them. It's called Reef Check, and it's still developing, but I think they're actually taking people out today to do a little teacher training on the boats. But when we started our annual appeal around Christmas this year, they said, whatever you get, we're going to match it. So I think we ended up with, I want to say about $68,000 that came out of that. So again, there's money in this. And this is another big one. This one, we talked about local with the port, and we talked about Altasea and all this. This is a state level thing. And the one that's kind of important about this one, I linked it up there. Their website has got a lot of good language on it about STEM, NGSS, and all that stuff. So get on there, look at the references, and see how you can align the language with which you are speaking about your program. That's what you want to do. Don't align your program, align the language. This one was another one where we first took our crew and put them through a training session, and that's where I stole the having you all stand up from. So we did that with our volunteers one weekend, and then a couple of weeks later, we brought in, and you can see all these people. I think we had about 60 teachers that came down, and we did a classroom component with them in the morning, and then we took them out on the boats. And they kind of got into it a little. They're hauling up the main there. They were going aloft. There's this great other picture of them out on the head rig. So they kind of got the experience, and that's one of the keys too, is win over the teachers, let them go back to the schools and say, hey, this is a fantastic program we have to get into. So your takeaways, get those partnerships going, align the language, and don't do your program over. Just figure out how you can add value to someone else's. I'm not a great expert on this, so I'm going to give you two references that are. Jolene is our marketing director and development director, and she has been all over this for the last couple of years. Kurt Holland is kind of fantastic. He's with U.S. Sailing, and he's been teaching at the Naval Academy and all kinds of different things. These are two really great references that you can use to get in touch, to get more references on how to do this stuff.